to the Hum Insider. It's our series of live stream conversations. I'm here with Jonas Groner. My name's Richard Bartlett. I hope you're having a swell morning on this Friday. We're going to do a live stream conversation. I think I'm going to give it just 1 minute for people to land before we get into the depth of the conversation today. And during that minute, I'm going to go and post a couple of tweets so people know that we're online.
Perfect. And while you do that, I can just pick up the mic and say a little bit about what we're trying to do. So Rich, Jocelyn, our other collaborator, and I are running a peer coaching program for people in a leadership position with a good cause, starting at the end of the month. And we were thinking maybe it's useful for us to show a little bit about what does peer coaching actually mean? How can it benefit people that are in a unique position in their initiative or organization, because they are kind of taking responsibility for helping others act in the face of uncertainty. And therefore, they are maybe a little bit exposed to the pressure or the risk or the uncertainty themselves, and it can be really useful to have good company to process all of these things. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to bring a challenge that is very live for me right now, and Rich will support me to see more clarity, or get more clarity, and see a way forward with my challenge. And if anyone's already listening, you have any questions, you have any observations about what's working between the two of us, or like what Rich is doing that helps me, or the way I'm showing up with curiosity or something, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you're listening on LinkedIn or Twitter as a reply to the stream, and we'll try to kind of incorporate the audience conversation into the session as well.
Thanks for holding the mic, Jonas.
My pleasure.
It's a really good description of what I had in mind, so I feel like we're on the same page. We've just got a message that Jocelyn is going to join us.
Oh, perfect.
So that's awesome. That means there's going to be three of us, which means we can share the roles out in a way that's going to be quite relaxing, I think. Here she comes. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. There she is. Good morning. Do we have Jocelyn Ames in the house? Or do we lack the sufficient amount of pixels?
They are still connecting the cables somewhere. Wow.
It looks like she's alive.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Cool.
Challenges.
We are live. No worries about the challenges.
I'm also alive.
Yeah. Jonas has just let us know a little bit about what the plan is for today.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Jocelyn, if you prefer being in coach mode or live stream host mode.
I can be host mode today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what we're doing?
Okay, I'll do you tell us what we're doing. Yeah. I don't know if any of our current viewers watched the live stream from, it wasn't last week, last year, like just before Christmas. Jonas and Rich did a really cool peer coaching session live, and it was really cool to see how showing up for each other can help us unravel a particular challenge or topic. And the focus has really been around leadership, because we are gearing up for a really cool coaching group program called In Good Company. And that's another typing.
Ooh, sorry.
Oh, thanks. Irrelevant typing. Cool. Then, in that spirit, we're diving in today with another practice demo. The coaching. Did you already share what the topic is?
No.
Can we check in first?
Yeah, sure. How are you doing?
I'm like pretty good. It's been a really intense week. Good intense, like back to back, really for the last 2 weeks without really much of a break. I've had some very inspiring peers coming to live with us in the house. And that's just meant like relentless, hard conversations about how do we see the world and what are we doing about it, and how am I getting in my own way, and what kind of support do I need? And I feel like it's been a kind of personal development boot camp in my house, which is great. And not just personal development, but like business development, thinking about the different ventures that we're involved in. And like, yeah, so my brain has really been stretched by a lot of strategic thinking and a lot of diving into my personal reality at the same time. So my brain is not as sharp today as it could be. It's definitely got some Friday fuzz on it. But I had such a good time with the last live stream that I've got quite a lot of anticipation for a good conversation here. I think that's me. Jonas, how are you?
I love the word Friday fuzz. That's I'm going to keep that. I feel similar. It's been an intense week. I had a good time over New Year's, unplugging and being in the mountains, and really like kind of putting my mind out of the work world for 2 weeks. And this week has been kind of putting myself back into those shoes. And as is always the case with the first week after some time off, for me at least, it takes more energy to do the things and reload the context and be like, right, this is where I left things and this is what I need to pick up. So I'm also noticing that it's been a few days of doing that, and my energy is a bit lower than the last days, and looking forward to a weekend. But I'm also very much looking forward to this conversation. It's very handy that we're doing peer coaching as a kind of promotion modality, because I love getting support. And yeah, I have some nervousness about being in public with it. I was just sharing offline with Rich that yeah, there's a little like kind of anxious part of me that's like, oh, will people see you as professional if you like share all of your thoughts and feelings out loud? And at the same time, that feels like an edge that I'm excited to lean into. Yeah, that's me. How about you, Jocelyn?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. A little bit frazzled this morning. Sort of like just crash landing, if I'm honest. Part of me is like, you can't say that. You have to be put together. But it's like, oh, I didn't sleep very well last night, and just was a bit of a, yeah. I'm co-hosting a wonderful experiment in south of Spain at the moment, where it's like a guest house for friends to come along and have a really great time doing exactly this. Peer support. We're calling it the Yincubator. Yin is in opposite of yang, so very much like the winter. And incubation is in incubating each other's awesomeness. Some people say, like, there's someone who said they're on a business accelerator program, and like, this is kind of like a person accelerator program for friends. And it's really sweet. And yeah, sometimes it's also just a bit of a mess in the kitchen when you wake up in the morning and like, so it kind of like threw me off a bit. I was thinking if I have to jump in with a last minute like challenge, I'd be like, how to not become the mother figure of the community and clear up after all the children. But that's not.
Let's go.
But it's really not that bad compared to other places I've been, but it's like becoming a micro tension. But yeah, I won't go too much into detail, but we do have this fantastic community mastery board, which I love because it's just really spreading the sort of leadership around raising tensions towards like inviting everyone to name tensions and like actively come up with next step practical solutions for how we can iterate our collective being together in the house. And so I'm sure I can bring it up there later today with everybody, and we'll find a little practical solution or a little game to play to make it more pleasant for everyone. Yeah, so arriving a bit with that, and also just like after tuning in with the live stream last time, that was awesome, and looking forward to being here witnessing the two of you. And maybe I can every now and then I might just pause it if that's cool with you, and if there's a moment that feels right, just sort of highlight what's going on. And if anyone who's listening in wants to share what they're noticing or observing, you're super welcome to do that in the chat. I don't know if you guys introduced that already. Did you say something about here or there? Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't harm to say it again.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just really liked it. At the end of the last one, Jonas, you invited everyone to sort of reflect on like what did you notice, and how did the two of you show up, and what does peer coaching really like look like? What are some principles? And so if you're noticing anything like that along the way, do name it. Or if you have questions about not necessarily the content, but the process maybe, and the container, it's also very welcome. I say not content because it might just distract Rich and Jonas during the session. So maybe leave that for afterwards if you have content things, just to keep their space clear. Yeah. How does that sound, guys? Is there anything else you want to add before we dive in? Yeah.
Sounds
Cool.
great.
I'll add one thing, which is just the roles that we've decided on in the last 3 minutes, which is Jonas has got a challenge. I'm going to be the coach. Jocelyn's going to be the host, sort of looking after the live stream and interacting with people and noticing what's going on. The reason that I'm the coach here is because I probably have the least experience coaching. And I think that illustrates something about why we're talking about peer coaching instead of like, professionally certified coaches. It's I think we're trying to demonstrate there's a kind of 80-20 of coaching, which is like, here's some basic pointers that just about anyone can do. And if you take this mindset, if you practice this approach, you're going to be really supportive to your peers, to your colleagues, to your friends. And that's why I'm the coach today, not because I'm the best coach. And I'm saying that to give myself some grace for doing it my way.
Perfect.
So Jonas, what are you showing up with today?
Yeah, I've alluded to the situation in the check-in where I'm like coming back to work and opening all of the boxes at once. Yeah, I find myself in the moment of like being faced with so many choices that it just exceeds my capacity. I've been thinking about this metaphor, like, because I've been going to the mountains over New Year's, and it's a thing I regularly do, and it always comes up with good metaphors for me. Where it's like, when I go to the mountains, there's a certain amount of uncertainty. Like, there's avalanche conditions and weather and the terrain and my own state and the way my friends are doing and like all of these things. And there's an amount of uncertainty that I can track, an amount of factors or questions that I can keep in my hold in my memory and keep track of and take grounded decisions for or based on, to then move through the uncertainty. And it's a good time when the amount of uncertainty is within my capacity, and if it's beyond that, then I get overwhelmed. And right now I'm a bit overwhelmed because like the organization I'm working with, Civil Action Network, I'm in the core team, in the leadership team there, and we're just in a crucial moment right now of deciding on the fundraising strategy for the next year. A new project is kicking off, another one is about to finish and it needs the last push. There's other small things that just need kind of attention on the side. And I'm having trouble to, like, I know that I can't do everything at once, but I'm having trouble to decide what can wait until later. And what is actually crucial. And so, like, in the mountain metaphor is like, what's the the thing that's going to kill me if I don't attend to it, and what's the thing where I may get a blister on my foot, but it doesn't really it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so that's what I'm showing up with.
Yeah, I think I recognize this feeling of like overwhelming your capacity for uncertainty, and then not necessarily knowing how to pick between, how to prioritize, how to choose where to put your focus.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's useful. I'm just assuming from the way your sort of tone of voice, it sounds like on the mountains, you've got some like, it feels like you're touching into some sense of competence and like, I actually know what I'm doing in the mountains and it's good. And then when you're talking about work, it's like, oh. So I wonder if we could stay with the mountain metaphor for a second. And I wanted to know, like, tell me more about this capacity for uncertainty. Like, what signals are you paying attention to that lets you know what your capacity is, or that you're getting to the edge of it, or that you're overwhelmed? Like, is it a binary thing that suddenly you're overwhelmed, or are there progressive stages, or what does that look like in your body and your brain?
Yeah, there's certainly progressive stages. I know that I'm faced with uncertainty when I catch myself running through like different scenarios in my head. I'm like, if we do this, this could happen. If we do that, this could happen. Blah, blah, blah. And like there's this kind of nervous energy to it a little bit. And I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not paying attention to how my body feels, or how beautiful the view is, or how much I love my friends. But I'm like kind of in the scenario planning world, or in the kind of mind racing state a little bit. And then I know I'm within my capacity when I catch myself doing that, and like I pop out of it. I'm like, I'm worried about something. What is it that I'm worried about? And then I'm like kind of in the more present. I'm like, okay, so how am I actually doing right now? Let's look at it in a bit of a sober way. What are the objective risks here? What are the possible choices we can make? What do they imply for the risks? What's the state of the group? Should we have a conversation about this, or is it something I'm just kind of taking a choice on for myself? What position am I in the group right now? Am I leading, or am I just following behind? Is it really like, should I be really, really, really thinking about it? Or am I just the kind of redundant double check where I'm like also paying attention, but I know someone else is paying more attention. And if I notice something, I let them know, and they're like, yeah, I got it. Don't worry about it. And like, if I'm able to do all of these moves that I just described, then I know I'm within my capacity. And now I'm getting closer to the edge of my capacity when the moments of mind racing keep getting longer, and the moments of popping out keep getting fewer and far in between. And yeah. It's like, do I wake up in the morning and I'm already like not having a good feeling about the day? I'm like, this is going to be a tough one. Or do I not enjoy it anymore? Like, I'm like, I just need to get through the day. Like, and then I'm not taking choices from a grounded, sober, let's evaluate the landscape here position. But then I'm taking choices from the kind of path of least resistance point of view. Right. That doesn't yield to good choices.
It's like, how can I get this over and done with?
Exactly. Yeah.
Instead of what's the most strategic way to get to our outcome, or what's the thing I'm most excited about, or what's the best choice objectively.
Yeah.
Okay. So I honestly, when you talk about the mountains, something in me relaxes. It's like, I want to go to the mountains with you. It really sounds like you're a safe, kind of courageous person to go out with. I guess the question is, how much of this translates into the workplace? Like, you've described these, fundraising's kicking off. You've got these new projects going on. You're thinking about the state of the team. There's like a lot of things to keep track of. I guess I want to get a sense of like how do you rate yourself in a way? Like, where do you want to be, and where are you? Like, what would it look like if you were exceptionally good at handling this uncertainty and making cool choices? Like, if that was a 10, what does that look like? And then where are you now?
Cool. I love that question.
Maybe I can just pause here with a meta noticing, because it's just interesting seeing a few moves. Is that okay with you, Jonas? You're not going to lose the thread. Noticing a few moves that Rich is making, and I'm asking myself, well, I wonder what Rich is, where is curiosity, or how he's using his curiosity here. And it seems, Rich, and tell me if this is right, that as you're listening to Jonas, you're also sensing into what's coming up for you, like this beautiful reflection. Now, when you talk about the mountains, something in me relaxes. Is there any other, where else are you choosing your questions from at this point?
Definitely just tracking my own somatic experience and realizing, like, I feel a little bit afraid when he talks about work, and I feel relaxed and excited when he talks about the mountains. And I assume that's just because I'm empathizing. Like, I've been in a situation at work and I hate it, and I just don't want to think about it. So I'm like, let's think about the mountains. And then the other thing is, I guess the anti-pattern, or the way that I can fail as a coach is when I want to give advice. And so if some advice pops up in me, I'm trying to like reverse engineer that and turn it into an open question. Because I think the impulse for the advice is coming from somewhere really useful, but just saying, have you tried this, or you should do that, like, very seldom helps someone. So there's some of that mental gymnastics going to. And the third thing, I guess, is a trust and presence, that, like, if I can really just be present here with this person and not notice that there's anyone else in the room, not notice that I'm being observed, or that not think about how this could go badly or I could do it wrong, and just relax into the moment, then usually things spontaneously arise in the relationship that seem to be helpful.
Right. Yeah, I sense that there might be something coming up for you, but you're not going into projecting your experience onto Jonas, but you are telling him what you're sensing in a way, like you're feeling. But then I see you being like, how do you rate yourself was your last question. You're helping him to like place his experience within a, like, how bad is it, or where are you now? Like, and rather than telling him this is where you are, maybe you should do that next. Yeah. So
and to get some distance from the problem, and to like take a higher perspective and look at it as an object.
Yeah. Cool. I won't break the flow anymore from here. Just
Great interruption.
Back in. So yeah, how do you rate yourself?
Yeah. So I think what it would look like if I would be really good at this is like I would make time for this. This takes time. Like it is it's part of the work, kind of, to map out what are the different elements of my work right now. What do I think I'm being asked to do by the context? What are my assumptions about the importance of that? The criticality of the different work packages. How and like different layers of that is like, what's the direct outcome? What does it imply about maybe someone else's work, or like, am I mentoring someone? And that's why this thing is really important, because if I drop it now, like, we lose a lot of potential in the future, because this person will get demotivated and drop out, or like they will get stuck in their kind of their development in the moment, or they don't have what they need to progress on their own. Or is it like, I really need to attend to this because there's legal implications, like we are kind of legally required to submit a report to a funder or something, otherwise we have to pay back the money. It's like these different categories of important and urgent. Like, I would map all of those out and then not freak out while looking at them. So not go into like, I need to do so much now. But I would just be able to, like, in a very sober way, be like, okay, this one really needs to happen. This one also really needs to happen. that one, I mean, someone might get mad at me if I don't do this now, but that's what it is. I can't help that. I can take the hit. I can take the person. Hey, I'm really sorry. I care about you and the work that we're doing together, but it just wasn't possible for me. And yeah, kind of just go through this process, make a plan, and then execute the plan. Where I'm now is that I think I don't have time to do that. So I'm like kind of on the fly assessing, like, right, okay, I know this really needs to happen. I have a feeling there's other things that also really need to happen, but I'm not going to look at all of them because that's like overwhelming. That takes away my capacity to focus on this one thing. So I'm like kind of a little bit kind of digging through like this and only looking at one thing at a time, so I don't get overwhelmed with the immensity of the whole thing. And I know it's not the most strategic or smart thing to do, but yeah, somehow it's been what's been possible this week to just like look at one thing at a time and make good progress with each thing. But there's still this like kind of pressure on my shoulders of like, I know I'm not seeing everything. And that makes me nervous because I don't know if I'm missing something. Yeah.
I'm sort of feeling like a fork in the road in this conversation where we can go, I can ask you more about the kind of general skill of managing your capacity and dealing with uncertainty and prioritization, or the other direction is like, we could just do it. Like you could just tell me what are some of the responsibilities on your plate, and we can go through them together and go like, what are you thinking about this? How do you have a preference for one or the other?
I think the specific would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may pop to the meta level for just a second, I love that you are asking this question, because making things very grounded and specific, like we can talk for ages about the mountain metaphor or the kind of philosophize about the skills that are involved in doing this or that and what it feels like and what we've done in the past. But ultimately, the question is, what is now? And like, what is like, what do I need to do now? Like, what are the specific things that are holding me back or that are in my mind? And without looking at them, we can philosophize all we want. I'm not going to make any progress. So thank you for putting my attention that way.
And if I may, while we're on the meta level, there's just something to highlight of like Richie just mentioned, maybe that you sensed a fork in the road in the conversation. You could have kept that to yourself and just made a guess about which way to lead it. It was really nice that you were actually checking with Jonas where he wants to take it, giving him some options of what you sense. But if you don't, like, just to highlight, sometimes I don't know where to take it. And if I don't know, I can actually ask. So that was a nice demo of asking your friend, what's most meaningful for you?
Everyone get off the meta, come back down.
Yeah, okay. Let's get down and dirty with the nitty-gritty specifics. Okay, so can you help me get specific?
Yeah. Yeah, there's two, again, my brain is going in different directions at once. I think probably just what are the big buckets? What are the big chunks of work? How many of them? Let's give a label. Maybe you've got a notepad there or post-its or something like that. I'll have imaginary post-its. I'll take some notes on my computer.
Yeah.
Just list out what are the main chunks of work that you've felt like you've been juggling this week. Whether you've been doing them this week, but you're factoring them into your decision-making process.
Right. Yeah. And so there's a new project that's kicking off. It's called Integra Lead. There's a running project that needs some attention right now to finish where it's, we call it the storytelling project. Then there's fundraising decisions to be made, like kind of grant applications to be conceptualized, and the bigger, like choices to be made about if we do this, if we apply for this one, what are the options if we apply for that one. Like this, it's not just conceptualizing one, but kind of seeing how they interact and who can do the work around which, and putting all of these things into order. And there's a door knocking campaign for a European Citizens Panel that we are part of, that I'm kind of co-managing with a colleague. Let me think, am I missing anything? Yeah. And then there's things in the background that are kind of on the back burner that I already put on the back burner because I know like they're not urgent. And there's like just general organizational development things around like setting up systems, cleaning up the bookkeeping, like onboarding a new person to something. It's like, yeah, there's this whole like cloud of many things that I can pick indefinite tasks from. But I know they're already kind of categorized as non-essential right now. But these four are kind of the most pressing.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm wondering about the mountains. You said something about when you're considering all the factors, you know, when you're doing well, you know, like this might give me a blister and this might kill me and my team, literally. Yeah. And so I'm wondering about the consequences of getting it wrong. And so like if you look at those 4 projects and you say, I'm just going to bail on one, like I'm just going to ignore it for a week, I'm going to ignore it for 2 weeks, it's going to get 0 of my attention just so I'm freed up to be able to focus more on the other 3. Which one has the most tolerable bad consequences of dropping it?
That's a very tricky question.
Yeah. Tell me what's going on in your head.
So I'm like all of them have consequences. For the Integra lead and storytelling, those are EU projects, so we have an obligation to do certain things. And with the storytelling, project ends in May, and there's still a big event that needs to happen in March that we promised. And if we don't do it, we break the contract and we have to pay back the money. That's kind of maybe not getting killed, but that's like breaking a leg and having to heli out. The Integra lead is just starting, and we are like just about on time with our like the kind of plan we made for the whole project. And if I drop it now, then we will be behind schedule and we'll be stressful later. That's maybe closer to a blister. But part of me is like, no, that's not the right way of doing things. But that's good to note that, okay, yeah. And then the door knocking is, similar, where it's like there's an opportunity to do things in a spacious way now, or like kind of do a little bit at a time, and then it's easy. Or it can be dropped and then it's fucking stressful in a month. And the fundraising, actually, I think maybe that's the one that can kill us if we fuck it up. Because you need to do fundraising. As an NGO, like the way we survive is by writing project applications and getting grants. Yeah, and within that, it's like it's not massively pressing yet. Like we are also still on time, but the thing I'm noticing is about all of them, I've been saying we're actually still on schedule, or like we're like maybe a bit behind schedule, but it's not like the house is burning on any of them. I feel more relaxed already seeing that.
I'm just going to make a meta note. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here and he's feeling more relaxed. That's good to notice. I do have a question. I mean, as you were going through those, what I noticed was actually there's a pretty good rational argument for all four of these are important. So it's not like, oh, I just haven't thought about this, and obviously I can just drop this and it'll be fine. And that made me go, okay, maybe analyzing it in the intellectual is not the most fruitful dimension to explore, and it's more like the emotional. And it's like, is there one of these that has a lot of flow and gives you energy, and is there one of them that really activates some anxiety or fear or doubts, or like has complex relationships, or like things that make you lose sleep?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. The integral lead, that gives me a lot of energy. There's a lot of flow in that. But it's very nice. I get to conceptualize trainings for people in activist groups and like nerd out about integral theory and learn more about what people's challenges are. It's super fun. And it's very clear what to do with it next. It's not complicated in that sense. The door knocking thing is also, there's some discomfort there because like the next step is just an activity that I don't enjoy. But it's also very clear what to do next. The storytelling gives me a bit more of a headache, but not a massive one where it's like I worry that I don't have what it takes. It's just similarly, I'm like, it's something that, like, if I had nothing else to do, it would be an okay way to spend time. But next to all of these other things, it just feels like I need to make myself do it. Right this moment, not in general. Like in general, I think it's a great project. But and with fundraising, there it feels like that's really taking a big chunk of like big picture thinking and capacity to hold complexity and yeah, there's complicated relationships involved. There's long-term decisions about the direction of the work we'll be doing. There's yeah, all of these things, and it's that one is really feels like the one that I'm most reluctant to get into, and at the same time, it's the one that could kill us.
For the two in the middle, where you sort of said something along the lines of, you know, it sounded like the next steps are a bit unpleasant, or that maybe I have to make myself do it. When you notice that a task is one of these ones where you're like, oh, I just got to get through this.
Yeah.
What strategies do you have to like minimize the psychic damage of doing things you don't want to do?
Yeah. So I try to like plan when I will do them. So like I can anticipate. There will be a moment when I will have to do something I don't enjoy massively. And plan it for a time of the day where like that kind of the energy fits this activity, like for the door knocking one, for example, it's just like sending a bunch of messages to people being like, hey, do you want to like go door knocking with us? And like kind of activating our pool of volunteers. And it's a bit repetitive, and it means that afterwards I will have to like keep track of my very full Messenger inbox for a few days to catch the replies, and that kind of thing I best do somewhere in the afternoon, because it's not a very creative task. And in the morning I have lots of creative energy, and if I have to do something like this in the morning, I feel like it's a big loss because I didn't get to work on something that deserves my full creative attention. Yeah.
What's that noise?
It's like I know what to do. It's not like I don't know how to do this.
And again, Richard's hardly doing anything. I like there's a lot of active space.
The main coaching move I know is to listen and say and then say, you know what to do.
Yeah. Well, I think what I want to do with storytelling and door knocking, because there's a reason it's been like it's felt hard, and the reason is it feels like I need to do it now, and I can't do it now. I can't do it all now. And I think it's not true that I need to do it now. Of course, it would be better if I could do it now. But as I just saw before, it's like I might get a blister if I don't do it now, but instead on Monday. But the world's not going to end. I don't need to sacrifice my weekend to do it because the consequences are so bad or anything. So I can just schedule it for the beginning of the next week.
Tell me about what that face means.
It's like, relaxation. I feel more space to breathe. I'm like, okay, cool. I can kind of consciously offload something to future me. And not because I'm trying to take the path of least resistance and just trying to make my life easier now. But it's actually a grounded decision. Because like in practice, what I do when I'm too full is I just don't do everything anyway. Like it's just a physical limit to how much I can do in a day. And the practical outcome is kind of nearly the same, but I do it struggling and feeling like kind of suffering in the process. The discomfort of looking things in the face and being like, okay, this is now, this is later. It's uncomfortable to do that a bit. But the discomfort of doing that is a very small price to pay compared to the suffering of not doing it. And anyway.
I just want to butt in here and just noticing an arc to this session. Like there was the build up of like clarifying what's the challenge, getting into like what are the beliefs, and now the beliefs and thoughts that came out, and then there was this moment of like, just realized I keep saying we don't have this deadline, or it's not the deadline is not way overgone. We're actually still okay within time, and then those ideas start to, or like a bit more. Jonas, you sort of start figuring a lot out by yourself, which is giving space, and maybe we're starting to go towards what you'll do next. But I just wonder before we go much further if there's anything from the audience they want to share in the chat about what you're noticing. What's coming up for you as you're listening, if you were the coach. What would be your next move?
I love that question, Jocelyn. If someone's typing, I'll take up the space by asking my own question. I wanted to come back up one level of abstraction and say, how do you started out by saying you're not making time to do this process, you're not making time to do the strategic prioritization, and I'm just like, okay, it's great if you can handle, on this project I should put this at this part of my calendar and I should put this on this part of my calendar, but what's the point of your calendar where you get to do this process? Like, how do you make that a regular thing?
So usually that's Monday morning at 8, between 8 and 9. And then at 9, there's the weekly team check-in. And everyone's like, hey, this is what I'm going to work on this week. So usually I have a good rhythm for this. This week I started to work on Tuesday. So there was no Monday morning check-in and no reason to get ready for it and have overview. So that explains why this week has looked the way it has looked.
It's like getting frostbite in the mountains and then realizing you're not wearing any shoes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's why we do that.
Yep. Yeah.
Are you satisfied just kind of registering that insight and being like, oh yeah, taking time for the overview is important, or do you actually want to commit to any particular action?
Yeah. So what's been emerging for me is like, okay, I'll schedule a session for Monday. I don't know exactly what my Monday will look like yet. There's some moving parts, but in this process, like by the end of the day, there will be a date in my calendar for doing the things around door knocking, doing things around storytelling. Like a kind of co-working session with myself that has very clear like to-do list specifically for the session. Then, yeah, another thing is Monday morning, first thing, plan the week. It's going to be a bit different for the next 3 weeks because the whole team, we will be on a 3-week retreat. That's like not working the way normal work weeks work. So I can't fully do the same thing, but what I for sure can do is look at like what are the things that need to happen next to the retreat activities. Yeah, like do this kind of prioritization for myself. And that will land in my calendar as well. Yeah.
It's interesting to notice that you build up these good routines and habits that support you to be at your best. And then you internalize them and sort of take them for granted and almost like forget why they're there. And you just benefit from them being there. And I wonder if there's a way to like stay awake to the design principles behind the routines. So like if we're going into there's a month here where we know we're going to be outside of our normal schedules and things like that. It's like, well, what were the design principles that were driving that routine in the first place? And can I at least get some kind of surrogate in the meantime?
Yeah. I think the main design principle for the way we usually work is there's an interplay between kind of personal responsibility and like me having overview over my work and kind of peer-to-peer accountability, or like having multiple eyes on each piece of work, multiple pairs of eyes, not just two. So that like there's some redundancy built in, like if someone misses something, someone else can catch it. There's no kind of single points of failure in the system. So yeah, the way the planning works is I look at, these are the projects I'm working on right now, this is what needs to happen next, this is how I prioritize them this week. And then there's a check-in where I share it with everyone else. And everyone else shares their things. And then in the end, we ask questions to each other. Like, hey, do you have this on your radar? Or I noticed no one said, I will prepare the Wednesday operational meeting. Or no one said I will prepare the next newsletter. Who will do that? So like there's this kind of checking moment built in where where we can evaluate or like remind each other of the things that might drop every now and then. And actually, I feel like we already talked a bit about how our weeks can look like now in this kind of different time. And I am not at all worried about this being a persistent issue, because we'll start each day with a check-in and we'll end each day with a checkout. And there will be, like, we're all skilled at this, playing this game of collaboration. So like, I think once we're in it, it's going to be golden. I just need to like have everything on my radar that I need to take into that time, and I kind of set the initial conditions right, so that then it can just unfold and flow. And yeah,
I'm noticing how when you're reaching the limit of your capacity, there's a superorganism that has a greater capacity. You know, like that's why you're confident on the mountains, is because you have an awesome crew, not because you're like some kind of superhero.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And maybe the reason you relaxed in the last 45 minutes is because you got to like borrow some processing power from the two of us, and even just like not even much from us, but start to put things down on paper, put something down in my head, sort of simulated people that you can talk, different parts of you having a little conversation with each other, just like borrow more nervous systems, more brains.
Yeah, in a way I almost feel like someone's attention, just you paying attention to what I'm saying and me feeling like I'm being listened to, is expanding my capacity to keep overview. Like it doesn't feel as scary to look at a thing if I say it to you versus if I just have it in my head. Because I know if it's a really big and scary thing, you will be there to help me figure it out, or like, and maybe it's not even necessary all the time for you to do anything with it, but just the increased confidence I have in our collective capacity to figure my shit out means that I have an easier time figuring my own shit out somehow. Or,
at the start of the conversation, when we were checking in, you said something about some resistance or hesitation about if I share my challenges in public, will I look unprofessional, or something along those lines? And I wanted to check in on what's your analysis. I want to update that prediction, basically. Like, did that prediction come true?
Yeah. I mean, there's still this voice in my head that's like, ooh, did I share? Like, it's changed a bit. I don't think I feel unprofessional. It's more like the doubt is, did I share too many like kind of insights about what we're doing? Or like, if someone from my team watches this, will they get like mad at me for doing this in public? But I don't think so, honestly. Like, it's just, I know that like this is the first time I'm doing something like this in public. So it would be very normal to have some doubts about it. I just did that to myself.
You did. It's totally normal.
The Jonas 101 it's normal.
Yeah. It's funny because it's my like standard coaching move. If like, anyway.
Okay, I just want to zoom in at one click. So with that question, I'm not actually so curious about how does it feel to be on stage with an audience. It's more like, how does it feel to reveal to anyone that I'm not fully developed and I need help sometimes.
Oh, that part feels massively relaxing. It's like I can stop pretending. I can be real. I can say like, this is where I'm at. Holy shit. I don't have to be anywhere else than where I'm at. How good is that? It's like when I try to pretend I don't have any challenges, life feels really hard because I'm always busy keeping up that idea for myself or for other people. And I can't be present with what is right now. And it feels like a massive weight is dropping when I'm like, right, I can acknowledge what I can do and where the limits of my capacity are. And yeah. And no one's shaming me for it. No one's telling me off or telling me like, what? That's a challenge for you? Like, how silly is that? Like the opposite is true, Rich. You're saying in the beginning, yeah, I know this feeling well. Like it's something I also experience. It's a sense of like okayness and companionship, and yeah.
Just noteworthy to. Oh, Goosebumps. I was going to say it's noteworthy that Rich, you have not much overview of what's going on in Cannes. You don't work there. But even so, you can give that companionship to Jonas from this level of just being present, as you were saying, Jonas. And even though the outcomes like you didn't have to give any advice based on specifics of the organization, but just by listening to Jonas's position and like his thoughts and belief systems around it and hearing what's going on for him personally. Yeah.
Even more than that, like I was using my ignorance as a resource, like actively ignoring the content that he's telling me and tracking the body language instead, or like just noticing, oh, you're going into this, you're studying this part of the territory. I don't need to know much about that. What else is, you're looking left, I'll look right. What's out there, and just exploring what I can see. And that's where I think we get the expanded capacity.
Yeah.
Jonas, do you have any, do you need anything else before you would feel complete with this coaching session?
Not really, no. Nothing is coming.
Does that mean we can all jump out of the pool and get on the meta level?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed making some notes of a few things there. Like, I think one thing I found really beautiful about this is the like you can reflect things as like saying back what Jonas said. I think Rich maybe did that just a few times, but mostly you were just paraphrasing. But you were also paraphrasing, really using this metaphor that Jonas brought in right at the beginning of the mountaineering, the hiking, and I think that made it really like personal, and like it was clear at the beginning that the need was for like getting clarity on prioritization. You could have gone so many different ways of like trying to get into the nitty gritty of each project or something, and like what's the next step on that project, but you kept coming back to like just holding that. Okay, what's I think you had one question, like what would make you lose sleep at night? You just kept going back to okay, and how do you rate yourself with how you're prioritizing things now? And I imagine that contributed somewhat to the sort of ease of coming to a sense of okay, that's helpful. Like, I got it. Having help specifically on prioritization. Does that resonate, Jonas?
Yeah, that resonates, and it brings up a few things. It's like what you were demonstrating, Rich, is like the trust that I'm the expert for my own context. Like you're not trying to get all of the information so that you can make a call about what has higher priority or not. You're just like, you know what has higher priority. You're doing the work. You're like engaged with this all the time. So I don't need to know. Like, just tell me. And feeling that trust does something. It's like, right, I'm the expert for my own context. I have the capacity to know what has higher priority. Because that's part of the challenge as well. It's like feeling like, it's so hard to know what has higher priority. And like then I'm stuck on that thought and I'm not actually looking at what has higher priority. And feeling your trust and I have the capacity to know reminded me that I do have the capacity to know.
Before we keep going deeper, I just want to re-invite people listening in. So like if you've noticed something, please do feel free to type like what have you noticed And feel free to ask Jonas a question about his experience, or ask Rich a question about how you saw him showing up and what he did or did not do. We'll keep chatting, but if anything comes through, happy to bring it and weave it into our conversation as we go into this meta level of like, what was helpful there? And don't worry if you haven't watched the whole thing, just from whatever you've tuned in with, whatever you observed. All good. Yeah. Rich, do you want to share?
Yeah, I had some more things that I noticed. It's fun for me actually to have this metacognition and notice what choices I'm making and why I'm making them. One of the things I did was, like you said, I kept us focused on the prioritization question. I was tracking what's the right level of abstraction to go to. And for me, the right level is the one where you're in your tolerable stretch zone. And so when you listed out the challenges with the 4 projects, there was one that seemed easy, 2 that seemed medium, and 1 that seemed really hard. And I just focused on the medium ones because I wanted you to have a win. And I wanted you to have that sense of like, oh yeah, challenges, they're painful, and then I can do them, and then I'm stronger, rather than going straight to the really hard one and going like, oh God, this is really, really hard, like spending 2 lines stewing in how intimidating the cliff face is. It's really demotivating, but it's like, well, what about if we just make this medium slope first, and then we'll see it from a different perspective, and maybe we'll be amped because we got to, feel like we know what we're doing and we got a good team, and also I had some snacks,
Yeah.
And so my assumption was the prioritization was like, actually you can make headway on that question in general. And so it's not, but with someone else, if they were showing up with less capacity, more stress, I would have said, okay, let's just choose one of those projects. What's the easiest project? And we're just going to make sure you are going to make awesome progress on that today. Just like finding a way to give them the win.
Yeah. And I want to expand on like a little bit of a content part that I didn't say during the session. Outsourcing these 2 medium projects to next week means that today I will have more capacity to work on the hard one. And I can have full attention for it and not worry about, I'm not doing something else right now that I should be doing. That went on in my head as well. I didn't say it because it seemed obvious to me. But I love the principle that you're alluding to there. It's like the kind of, I always use the phrase small sweet steps with my coaching clients. That's a phrase I learned in the coaching modality that I trained in. It's like, we have great aspirations and visions, and sometimes it can be really scary. So let's not look at the whole mountain. Let's just focus on the next stint. What is the next step we can take? Like, how can we? And you asked the question, what strategies do you have for taking care of these kinds of tasks that you don't like to be doing? And that's like a way for me to make it sweet and less hard is by planning it in the afternoon, like being able to anticipate it. And to make it extra sweet, I will, I don't know, light a candle and have a cup of tea while I do it. And yeah, that's a really cool principle for exactly this, growing the capacity to act and move forward at all. And by taking small steps, you can take increasingly bigger steps later on. But without taking the small steps first, you'll never be able to take the big steps.
I keep noticing things that I was doing. Like,
yes.
how much should I keep unrolling the moves, and how much should we? When should we be trying to wrap up this conversation? But I'll tell you some more moves. One is what I'm now calling nervous system leadership, which is it's my job to be the most settled body in the room. That means noticing any tension. Like a couple of times, I noticed the tension in my gut, and I think it was just empathy. And so, like, intentionally tensing that muscle and then releasing it. Slowing down my breathing, leaving a bit of space between saying things, it's made more difficult by the, you've got the delays on the live streaming and but just trying to keep coming back to, if you're if we're playing a role where you're looking up to me or you're focusing your attention on me, if you're like taking your lead from me, your nervous system is doing that as well as your cognition. And if I can be the one that's like, everything's fine, we're good, we're safe, it's like you're borrowing that capacity from me as well. So I was doing that on purpose. And the other thing I did was, I noticed it every time, but I didn't call it every time. But whenever you were like, you had a funny grin, or you went, or like you do it, like a non-verbal communication. It's like, hey, can you verbalize that? Because when it's non-verbal, it slips under the radar, but often it's really important. That noise, you're like, oh, like it's like, can you just slow down for a second and bring that up to the level of consciousness where you can put it into words? Because don't forget that one.
Yeah, I noticed that too. You're really paying attention to like body language and like non-verbal cues as well. Yeah, and I want to say, like Rich, you started off saying, "Oh, I'm not like as experienced a coach in this room, but I do it my way." And it was nice to see that. Like, I think still there are some principles that you tune in with that are kind of universal. And the basic one I sensed and picked up was like your curiosity and presence. Which sound like almost obvious, but I think that nervous system leadership is about being present, because it's about being present not just to Jonas and his experience and his body language, what he's saying and what's between the words for him, but also being present to what's happening in you. And if you notice tension, is it like, oh, maybe that's just empathy? Okay, maybe there's like you can tune into, if you're feeling it, is there some information you're picking up on that you could feed back to Jonas? Or if you're feeling it and it's not empathy, I'm guessing it could be that maybe there's a part of you coming up that's like, oh, I need to fix it. Like for me, it's often like I might be feeling I need to fix this, or what do I do next? And I don't know how to help. And what if this is taking in the wrong direction or something? So what do I do with that? That's another element of presence. Like, can I relax that and then just come back to, like, for me, I just try and relax it and see, okay, what if I don't know right now, I could check with Jonas, or I can just breathe and wait, or I could be honest about it. You might want to, I don't know what it would be for you in a specific moment, but if you have that presence to yourself, it's more likely that you're going to notice it. And even just noticing I have that tension about, am I doing it well enough? Just noticing that is going to help it relax as well. So presence in that way. Yeah, and curiosity about, what's going on for the other person. Curiosity and I think also like seeing the greater potential of that person when they're not stuck, and sort of leading from a generous image of who they could be. I don't know if you want to riff off that before we sort of bring it to a close, but yeah, or any other closing comments?
Yeah, I just want to pick up one thing that you said there, Jocelyn, about what to do when a part comes up that wants to fix something or that wants to give advice. And what I always do is, and I think Rich, you did this really beautifully, is like, remember that this person, they have their own answers. They have the capacity, like I talked about this before, they have the capacity to know what to do next. And it's not my job to tell them what to do next, but it's my job to help them see their own answer to the question. And that always relaxes me. I'm like, I don't need to fix it. Wow. I don't need to work harder than the person I'm coaching right now. And that helps me to be present again and attend to like what's actually happening.
Anything you want to add, Rich?
I mean, I could go on indefinitely talking about this stuff, but I think what would be more useful is to talk briefly about what's happening next week, next month. Like, what's the invitation for people watching this video? I can start and you can fill in anything I'm missing, maybe. So, like, we sort of, we mentioned this at the start. I'm not sure if you've watched the whole video, so I'll just reiterate. We're starting a peer coaching group The deadline to join is end of next week, January 16th. And the program is going to start on January 30th. And we're going to have there's an application process. So we're being careful about who we invite in. And we're looking for people that have some kind of leadership role. It doesn't have to necessarily be you are formally the CEO of a company. It could be that you're just incubating a new idea, a new project. You're trying to, you're taking a role where you're coordinating collective effort towards a goal that you really care about in any capacity. And you could benefit from having some peer support like we've been demonstrating here. Those are the kind of people we want to have in the room. And you'll directly be getting the benefit of coaching from us and coaching from other peers in the room. And you'll be getting the habit of peer coaching, which you can bring into your teams and organizations, which just massively increases the resilience and innovation and robustness and creates a context of development for everyone without necessarily having to pay for a lot of expensive leadership coaches. You can learn how to do it for each other. So we're really excited about the program. We've got an awesome crew coming together, and we're just looking for another, handful of people to join in with us. It's going to be a small, intimate group. And so if you're interested, please take a look at the links that I'll drop with the video. Get in touch with us. We want to talk to you about it. We're looking for the people that are right for us. What else would you like to add to that?
Just I'm super excited about it. Like Jonas and I ran a similar program a year ago. And it was just wonderful also seeing how the group not just benefited from coaching from us and from each other, but ended up having a sense of companionship. And particularly in leadership roles, it can feel a little bit lonely sometimes because not many people are in your position or holding the whole like you are. And it was great to see how people felt they could share things with people who could resonate and who could understand, even though they weren't part of the same project. Just like I was bringing up here, which is not part of Jonas's organization, but still sense of companionship from knowing what it's like to be on the path and showing up for one another with that presence and with curiosity. To show up as a more confident and self-led leader for your organization or your team, your project. So excited. Jonas, want to add anything?
No, nothing to add. Also, just very excited to get to play with cool people and help each other out. Actually, I have one thing to add. It's really useful. Jocelyn, you were saying it worked even though Rich is not part of the same context as me. And I think this program also works specifically because people are coming from different contexts. Mm-hmm. And it's easier sometimes to share about what's on my mind in my own context when I know Rich is not tied up with any of this. He has nothing to do with it. It has no implication for our relationship. And I can be free to share and to really be real and true with what is without being afraid of him being mad at me because he's also a part of this project that I'm just deprioritizing or something like that. I think it can be really beneficial to talk with people in similar positions, but in different contexts. I look forward to it.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's a wrap then.
Right.
Great to have the conversation. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And Rich has put the links in the chat so you can follow up there if you want more information. So for now, bye.
Bye.
Go.